Mwasibire muta, mwasibye mutya, amahoro, agandi, Bible, habari gani, muraho, sangonini, kopango, odeo. For those of you who are wondering what that was, these are some of the various local greetings found in East Africa's diverse languages. Welcome to SheCentre, the female podcast, where I dive into the issues and experiences that affect women everywhere. I am your host, Resti Kansime, and I am passionate about creating a safe space for women to share their stories and triumphs. I want to thank you for tuning into my podcast, and I would love for you to join our community and stay connected with us beyond this episode. You can find us on Instagram at _SheCentre_podcast and follow us on Facebook at the SheCentre Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and hit that follow and like button on our social media to be part of the conversation. Welcome back to you, my cherished SheCentre community listeners, and a warm embrace to those joining us for the first time in this festive season. I hope the holiday spirit is filling your hearts already. A gentle reminder to subscribe, follow, and to those who are joining for the first time, please become a part of our community. Also, stay tuned to our social media platforms for vibrant conversations, relevant content, and a weekly video snippet from our episodes each week. Okay, so we all know that investing in personal growth and development is one of the best decisions we can make, something even the Bible emphasizes. To become better parents, citizens, employees, wives, and more, we need to first work on ourselves. So I found this quote from Brian Tracy. It's a beautiful quote that captures this topic, and it says, "Personal development is a major time saver. The better you become, the less time it takes you to achieve your goals." This rings true, and it brings me to the inspiring conversation I had with my guest this week. This radiant individual unfolds a journey of recent choices in personal, spiritual, and mental growth. She is an old friend from the university, so I follow her on Instagram. Having witnessed her incredible transformation on Instagram, I reached out to her and she graciously agreed to share her story on SheCentre. Prossy is a true ray of sunlight. Her path includes navigating the loss of her mother in her late teens, a poignant story she bravely addresses. So please join us until the end to immerse yourself in her journey and draw inspiration just as I have. Enjoy Prossy's journey. Hi, Prossy. How are you doing?
Hi, Resti.
How are you? How is your day?
How am I? I am grateful. I'm well rested, and I feel like I'm in such a good space or place in my life right now. I mean, you have ups and downs as the day goes by, but generally, I'm grateful, to answer your question.
That's very good to hear. I like such answers. They're so hopeful and optimistic. Yes, so I just want to thank you so much for making the time to make it today. I know it's not that easy to give someone time these days, especially in this adulting stage. There's always something you could be doing, so I appreciate that. And for jumping onto the request as soon as I asked you, I am really grateful for that. And I told you that I'm a very observative person. Like, I always notice a lot of change in people, or I think it's mostly because I'm also in that transition stage of my life. So I kind of always notice when there's something happening in someone's life. And because I follow you on social media and we went to uni together, I started to notice on your content, there's a lot of change happening. And I was like, I've actually never really gotten to know Prossy at a deeper level, apart from us hanging out at uni and hanging with friends. I was like, I should reach out to Prossy and uh, hopefully ask her to tell her story on the podcast, because SheCentre is mostly not about like picking on this and this and this person. It's mostly about telling women's stories, and you never know, there might be some transitions you're going through, and someone out there is going through the same thing, but they don't know how to do it the way you're doing it. So that is why I reached out to you, in case you are wondering. So I like to start out by asking a question, to share about your childhood, how you think it might have impacted the person that you are right now, and how you see the world, basically.
Thank you so much for having me. It
Mm,
was a pleasant surprise, like I said. And
yeah.
maybe, you asked me how I am, and I didn't ask you how you're doing. So how are you? How are you today? How are you feeling?
I'm fine. I'm good. It's autumn here. We're probably closing into winter, and the weather is not that bad. I'm always mostly in the house because I'm working from home.
Okay.
This is my work. She
Okay.
center is my work. So basically, I just see from the outside, there's a lot of colors. The trees are, the leaves are falling. There's a lot of colors, which is a beautiful day. I'm not complaining. I'm very grateful to God. I feel like I am doing what I should be doing. And that's my purpose. This is the She Center podcast and everything that has to do with empowering women. So speaking to you and speaking to other ladies throughout the week is my highlight.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. And also, maybe can I just
Mm.
bless your work with a
Yes,
word of
please.
prayer? Is that
Thank
okay?
you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that would be good.
Okay, let's pray. Father Lord, we thank you so much for the gift that today is. And we thank you for She Center podcast. We know, Lord, that there's nothing you start without an end in it. You have already seen the end, and it's
Mm,
impactful and beautiful. And it's not just for Resty, it's for nations, it's
mm,
for women, it's beyond her, it's bigger than her.
mm.
So, Lord, we invite you
Yeah.
into this conversation today. We pray that you take over, Lord, and you lead us. I know it's very easy to plan and say, this is how my
Mm,
story will be told, but I also know that you have a
mm.
plan. So we invite you into
Yeah.
this conversation and pray for impact and influence. In the name of Jesus, we've prayed and believed.
Amen. You
Mhm.
definitely are the first guest who has come on here and blessed me and blessed the show. So thank you so much for that. Hopefully, everyone else can pick from you.
Nice,
Guests coming up.
nice, nice.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. Like I asked, childhood, take us to where you grew up from. I know you're my fellow tribe mate.
Mm,
I do know you grew up from my place, my hometown, back home.
yes.
So tell us a little bit of your childhood, and I'm interested to know how it has shaped who you are and the person that you are right now.
Wow, that's a very loaded question. But
Mm,
um, so I grew up in a rural area, because I mean now I live
mm,
in the city, but I grew up in Fort
mm.
Portal, you know the place.
Which is now a
A
city.
city? Yes,
We are no longer rural. We are
I
now the
know,
tourism
I
city.
know, I know. I like that.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Fort
Mm,
Portal. I grew up in a
mm,
really big family. My mom
yeah.
had 7 children, and
Mm,
but also, growing up in like way back then, it was never like
mm,
you, your parents, and your siblings. There was a whole lot of
yeah.
extended family. So we were
Yeah.
11 in total, and I
Mm,
am the last of those.
mm,
So I feel like the age difference between me and my siblings is really huge. So I was more
mm,
like a baby in a way.
mm.
Still I think in a in every sense of the word. Because it's like you never
Yeah.
really grow in the eyes of your parents or even your siblings who are much older than you. So I grew up in a
Yeah.
really big family,
Mm,
and I remember just being loved. Like I was
mm,
told I was beautiful, I am beautiful. You know, my siblings told me that I was really special. Um,
Mm,
my parents loved me a lot. I also remember being favored so much.
mm,
So, in a
yeah.
sense, my family was like a small, big, little village in a way.
Mm,
So
yeah.
that's what I remember about my childhood. Mostly, yes.
Mm,
So I did my primary education from Fort
mm,
Portal. My
mm,
dad was a teacher. My mom
mm,
was a social worker.
yeah.
Um, then I had primary education in Fort Portal, and then I did my secondary education in Bushenyi in a school called Beranyanji Girls School.
Mm,
Maybe what I didn't say about my parents is that my dad was
mm,
still is a very calm and
mm.
liberal man. I just remember
I'm
him like
Toro man.
yes, like when I think about my dad, I think about
Mm,
peace, just peaceful.
peace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
non-confrontational, very peace-giving,
Mm,
very peaceful.
yeah.
I also just remember him being, that non-reactive, so to say. I
Mm,
also feel like
mm,
he's someone who let a lot of things pass. In a sense, life didn't bother him amidst the challenges he
mm,
faced being young and having such a huge family.
mm,
And then my
yeah.
mom, on the other end, um,
Mm,
my mom was a go-getter. She really
mm,
was. I remember also at that time, because we were really young, but she was doing, I think, her master's. Don't know if she was doing her
mm,
master's. So what that meant is she was traveling to and fro, like traveling to the city to do
mm,
that program, like for a
mm.
month, and then she'd come during the
Oh,
weekend,
wow.
which was
Mm,
quite different at the time compared
yeah.
to the rest of the women I remember
Yeah.
in the community. I feel like
Mm,
my mom, she set like she set a lot of precedents. And sometimes,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, our communities, it was a bit uncomfortable for us because she was very different. But I just remember that she did not allow anything to hold her back. Also, she was
Mm,
very outspoken.
mm. So the
She,
opposite of your dad.
yes, she really, really was. She was so
Yeah.
outspoken. She was bougie in a way.
Mm, yeah.
Um, she loved fashion. She was very stylish. She's really, up to
Mm,
now, I think she's one of the most stylish people that I knew. Yeah,
mm,
so I feel like in a way I picked on some things from my dad, some qualities from my dad, and some from my
mm,
mom.
yeah.
And then, of course, my
Yeah.
siblings also had an impact on me, considering my parents
Mm,
were both working. So
mm,
I feel like in as much as I was raised by my parents, my siblings
yeah.
also
Yeah.
played a very big role in
Huge role.
raising me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
So after
mm,
primary education, I went to another district altogether in
mm,
Beranyanji, and it's a school that really had an impact on my life. One,
yeah.
why? Because that's when I was introduced to, I mean, I can call it religion, but really it's just like life as a believer. Because
Mm,
my family, I feel like we used to go to church for sure on Sunday.
mm,
We used to go to
yeah.
church, but then I don't remember there being such a thing as having a personal relationship with God. It was just you go to church
Mm,
on Sunday and that's just about it.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I feel like that school introduced me to like the whole concept of having a relationship with God, which for me was
Mm,
very new in a lot of ways. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's what I remember. Maybe the other thing that I didn't mention is as I was growing up, because we were many, and
Mm.
in the 90s, in the early 90s, it's even funny to say right now because the
I
kids
know,
right
right?
now, the TikTokers,
Every time I hear 90s, I'm like, that was just yesterday. Are we that old?
Yeah. The kids right now, when they talk about the 90s, it's almost like apparently they call us for
Ancient history.
yeah, ancient history. Even just mentioning it, I'm like strange, weird.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but when you look at the economic structure of Uganda at that time, there was a lot of hardships.
Yeah.
So think
Mm,
about
mm.
two young people raising 11 children.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there were challenges in terms of finances, for sure.
Mm,
Um, and I think slowly as I was growing up, I think around the age of 9 is when I
mm,
started to notice that, in as much as I grew up in a very loving family, my parents were
mm,
also struggling to make sure we had the best that
mm,
we could. Um,
mm.
and also, I think, because now when I look at my parents, I can now see them as individuals as opposed to the title mom and dad, which is
Mm,
these are
mm.
people who are supposed to make it happen. Um,
Yeah.
they were young, they were young and they had
Mm,
11 children to take care of and their own families because
mm,
you know how our society is.
mm.
Um,
Yeah.
so for sure, there were challenges in terms of like finances. And
Mm,
I think as I grew up around 9, I started to realize the strain that that had on them.
yeah.
And I think I felt like my part, the role I had to play, like I had a role to play by trying to be the best child that I could be. So perform
Mm,
well at school, not get involved in, like bad behavior, like they called
trouble.
it, trouble. Um,
Yeah.
and now that when I look back, I know for sure that that also influenced me in a way because what they say is that with kids who try to be the best in the eyes of their parents is that there's a trait, people pleasing. You understand?
Mm,
So
mm.
I think I
Yeah.
realized that once I joined secondary school. One, because I
Mm,
was no longer the special kid, I knew I was at home.
mm.
I now got exposed to, you know, different people,
Oh yeah.
from some were
Mm,
from the city, some were from the village, like I was.
mm.
Um,
Yeah.
but just starting to notice those small differences, and I think in a way, I was trying to fit in, but I still had
Mm.
struggles with, trying to be accepted. Yeah. And not that
Yeah.
I wasn't
Yeah.
accepted, but I think in my mind, that's something that had been
Yeah.
formed from when I was young. So
Mm. Yeah.
in there was an identity crisis, so to say,
Mm.
that definitely
Yeah.
had an impact on my relationships. First, myself,
Mm.
myself, because
Mm.
you have a
Mm.
perception of who you are, and then
Yeah.
later on, my relationships in life. I can confidently talk about it now because it's like I just discovered that like a year or two ago. And in there also,
Oh
it's a
yeah.
whole journey. It's not like
Mm. Yeah.
I think the first
Yeah.
step is understanding yourself and then seeing
Mm.
how best to grow. But yeah, those are some of the things that stand out about my childhood.
Yeah, indeed. When I think secondary school is like a teenage time, 13, 14, 15. You're like
Mm,
trying to discover who you are, trying to understand relationships. And if you're coming from a home where you are the last born, treated with like a princess and everything, and then you go to a school where no one cares about your title, it can kind of become a little bit challenging because you're like, I'm used to getting everything I want, and now here no one cares, no one does this. And navigating that, I think, can be quite challenging. How was that for you when you moved into your later teenage years? Let's say, I think HSC around that time, or
um,
university.
so when I went to high school, the
Mm,
school, because I left Buranyanji and then I went to a school called Seta High School, which was
mm,
really academic oriented. There was no
mm,
room for, for, your talents or sports, things like
Mm.
that. It was more.
That's that's quite interesting. I actually spoke to VC
Mm.
recently, and she was telling me for her, all she did in Set High was be in drama and acting. She was like, she didn't really care that much about, like, she said she was performing well, she was smart, but one thing that she remembers mostly about her life in Seta is she was always in entertainment and something like that. But then another person goes to the same school, and for them, they're like, yeah, it was school focus oriented. Maybe it's the characters. It could be the characters. Could
Um,
it be?
I think for
Mm.
me, I look at it like I compare it to the school I was in before.
Ah, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
I
yes.
don't know
I
if Visi
understand. I
was there
understand.
maybe for 6 years, but Branyanji was. So it
Mm,
had, um, let's say, religion in a way.
mm,
Yeah. They really
mm,
pushed us to have a relationship with God. They encouraged us
mm,
to like they nurtured our
mm,
gifts and talents, sports, music. I mean, academics
mm,
it was a main, but it was also like
mm.
there were all these other talents that they encouraged.
Activities, yeah.
Yeah, activities
Mm, okay.
that they nurtured.
Yeah.
So for me,
Mm,
transitioning from that environment to Seta High
mm,
School, I
mm.
think that's where the difference
Yeah.
is. Yeah, I think that's where the
Yeah,
difference is.
yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah. I think sometimes some schools could have some kind of entertainment which can become a big part of one student's life. But in comparison to other schools, like I did go to, I think my first O level school, during the term we had like a million things like interact wildlife club, all these things, and I was a part of each and every one of the clubs.
Mm,
So
nice.
throughout the term for me I was like having fun, a blast. And then when I went to another school after that, I was like, these other clubs were there, but they weren't really a big deal. Like no one really gave it, like, people were like, study, go study your books. It wasn't a big, so I think I understand. And it could also be because it's a single school, because my
That's
school
true.
was also a single school. Single schools usually really focus on so much more other than just academics. But then when you go
Yes.
also to these other private schools,
Mm.
private school, where Nyanji is a government school.
Yes, it is. It's a traditional school.
Yes, yes. Private schools focus so much on academics because I think, like, they have like, we have to get school fees, we need to perform the best so that we have a lot of students coming here. But government schools are like, what, we're already established, we are getting some support from the government.
Mm.
And I think that could be the reason why, maybe. Yeah. But so how is SETA? How is it for you in terms of like now navigating that change?
So in SETA, I I think my focus was really academics. Like I said, I
Mm,
always wanted to ease the burden that my parents had, and I
yeah.
knew that they were doing their best. It was a stretch for
Mm.
them. But
Mm,
I think also what made it easy was the fact that I
mm.
had all these siblings who are now, some were done with uni, they were
Oh, good.
working,
Yeah.
um,
Mm,
some were at uni. But I remember just having
mm,
a lot of support from them. But the school
yeah.
in itself, it was more
Yeah.
of academic. So I don't remember really like having a social life, so to say. Yeah.
But anyways, HSC has 2 years. You really have no
You get
time at
what
that
I mean?
moment to.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You're like, I came to study. I know where I come from.
Hmm. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's understandable. Yeah. What are the highlights, the things that stood out to you in your HSC years, in your
Mm.
HSC time, the 2 years there? Mm,
So in high school, in my form
mm,
five, I lost
mm.
my mom. Um,
Oh.
she had been, she had struggled with anemia, you know,
Mm,
for a
yeah.
while. And you know how our parents shielded us from a lot of things. Like a lot of
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
happened, but they were in the background and we never
Mm,
really got to know. But
yeah.
I just remember that at some point she had like health complications and also being
Mm,
like I don't think that the health system was the best at the time.
Mm. Mm.
But I can imagine, I also don't know if the disease was like a result of like so many things like stress, work, and all of
Mm.
that. But I
Mm.
just remember that she had some struggles and she passed.
Mm.
Um, and it's funny how that time when I was going back, I think it was second or third term. I think it was the term before
Mm.
Form 6, which must be third term.
That time, yeah.
Yeah, before we went back to school, she asked us to. So let's say if we were joining school like on the 20th,
Mm.
she asked us to stay up until like the 23rd, and there was no like
Mm.
specific reason. And by us, I mean me and my brother, who I'm very
Yeah.
close to. I mean, even the rest of my siblings. She asked us to stay longer, and I
Mm.
remember during that holiday she mentioned that she had a dream, and in the
Mm.
dream it's like she had passed. That's what I remember. So I
Mm.
don't know if she also sensed that we wouldn't come back to her.
Mm.
But I just remember leaving home that specific time, like scared, scared that I was
Mm.
gonna, like, I wasn't sure. And I honestly didn't want to admit it to myself then,
Yeah.
because I couldn't imagine a life without my mother. She was, like I said, she was a
Mm.
go getter. She pushed my dad. I mean, she had a positive impact on my dad for sure, like in terms of like propelling him forward.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
so her passing was, whew,
Mm.
I don't know,
I
like I
can
feel like
imagine.
after that, a lot of things happened, to be honest. Like, and also I feel like our societies at the time wouldn't really openly talk about grief.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, the school would release you for about 3 days. That's what happened. They let me go home and my brother for like 3 days, and then came back. But
Mm.
also, grief is not something that we ever really discussed. Even
Mm.
amongst my peers, I think they did their best to like comfort me, but I feel like
Mm.
that's not something I really allowed myself to feel. I think, up until
Yeah.
this year.
Mm.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that's a highlight in my high school life.
Did that affect your academics or performance that term or the rest of the HSC, or was it something that didn't really impact your education?
So I don't know if it's how I'm set up as a person, but
Mm.
challenges push me to do more.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just so funny. I don't know. It's like challenges just push me to do more. So I think when I lost
Mm.
my mom, I also just remember thinking like the only way I can honor her legacy is if I become the best of the best.
Yeah.
So I did my
Yeah.
best really in school, and I excelled actually. I excelled in my academics. But then again, like I said,
Mm.
I never dealt with a grief. So it's something
Yeah.
that reflected in my later stages
Later
of
years.
life.
Yeah.
Like it's something that I
Yeah.
saw the effects of it later on in my life.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, I'm sorry about that. I know in school, we used to have a lot of students who would be picked up in class, and the next thing you know, the teacher, after the child has left, they would be like, "Yeah, you guys just pray for this person. They just lost their mom or dad," and it was always something that you imagine, mostly if the parent always came to school to visit and all of us knew them. It's something I imagine that can be really hard because you're expected to come back to school and be okay, and life moves on and all that stuff, and to know that you didn't really get that opportunity to grieve, it's something that I know that can hugely impact the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so you can maybe talk about like life after that in the adult life, university and
Mm,
work life. How was that for you?
um, So, like I said, so after high school, of course, the next stage
Mm,
was to join uni. But right
mm.
before uni is like a whole long holiday vacation, so
Yeah.
they say.
Vacation. Yeah.
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 And what that meant is me going back to a home without my mom,
Mm,
which was so new to me.
yeah.
Um, I think I struggled to accept it that she was gone.
Mm,
And then
yeah.
also, I remember when we went back home, my brother and I, because the rest of my siblings, like I said, are much older than us. They're
Old.
married. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, some were just pursuing their careers, but they weren't home. So it was mostly me, my dad, and my brother. And, like people who just support us in the family. But I
Mm,
remember going, so my brother during vacation was working with my dad, who at the time owned a construction company.
mm,
Um, but I remember being home a lot by myself. Yeah.
mm.
And it was really hard because I feel like a home without a mom. It's like a mom who makes a home in a way. A home
And
with
especially if your mom was very outspoken and a strong character, then her absence is something that you can really feel,
yes,
as you described. Yeah.
yes. So it just felt like a house. It wasn't a home.
Mm,
Um, I just felt like I didn't have anyone to talk to.
mm,
I I felt lost, to be honest. I
mm.
felt lost,
Yeah.
and I think that really affected me, like in my later stages of life. I always felt a big percentage of me just always felt like there was something missing, like something,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I don't think I could place a finger, like, point it out. And then also, I feel like the way our societies are built, it's like if you have
Mm.
food on your table, you have a roof on your head,
To be grateful.
yeah, you have tuition, you're going to school, you need to be grateful. But I
Yeah.
think, I, in as much as I was in a big family, I also felt
Mm,
lonely for a big
yeah.
percentage of my life. And
Mm,
sometimes I think, social anxiety, how to deal with people. And
yeah.
again, the element of people pleasing is because I'm
Mm,
alone now, I want to have people around me all the time. And also, what that means
mm,
is try as much as possible and do the best you can to keep them around. Yeah.
yeah.
While not paying attention to your needs, which
Mm,
in turn just, also builds resentment, anger. All those feelings
yeah.
are things that
Yes.
I now later discovered when I was much older. Yeah.
Yeah. And how was this? Tell us about your adult life after going into the university and how you navigated all these things that you're talking about, the people pleasing and
Mm,
the feeling lost. How was it? I think I met you at uni. We were probably in first year when I met you.
yes.
We never really noticed much about each other at the university because we're all trying to figure out life. No one knows what. You just meet yourselves where you are,
Mm,
And I think also then at uni, right now it's quite common to talk about mental health and all these things because we see it on social media and people are advocating for it. But I believe the time when we went to uni, that was 2010, 2020, 2011.
mm,
Back in the day, no one knew mental health. Like, we didn't really talk about it. If you saw someone doing something, you'd always just be like, that one is just this, that's what is just this. And I think many of us just kind of like went by, like, shh.
mm,
Me, uni was like just going through, just trying to make it as much as you can.
mm,
All of us, I think, had stuff that we were dealing with, but we were just trying to make friendships that could last and stuff
mm,
like that. How
mm,
was it for you? Because I also recently, like 3 years ago, that's when I sat down with my emotions and started to kind of take everything in. And then that's when I was like, oh, that's why I was like this at uni. That's why this and this was happening. Like it took me a whole long, like a lot of time for me to sit down and sit with my emotions and be like, that was not normal. That was
Mm.
a lot I was dealing with, and this is how I did my best. So how was it for you when you look back at that young girl at university trying to figure out all these things and trying to be an adult? How was the navigation of your adulthood?
So two things stand out. One, like I said,
Mm,
I was the last born. What that means is a
mm,
lot of things were done for me.
mm,
You get what I mean? I did,
yeah.
I think, so to say, have a voice of my own. Yeah. Now
Mm,
that mixed with people pleasing is just
yeah.
a mess, a mess for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I just remember like just being overly nice to people and having no grace for myself. Yeah.
Yeah. You
Uh,
are a really nice person.
I don't know if I can say that anymore because right now I feel like I'm just me.
Please don't scare me. I just remember the nice you. I just remember you being son. I think it's not only because of being nice, but I would say you're the typical Mutoro girl, like they describe, calm. But I
Yeah.
guess that's you said your character from your dad. Like your
Yes.
dad was a very calm person, very
Yes.
soft spoken and everything. But that's who you are. Like I just figured that's we have all these cultural things, that blankets that we put on culture and family, that make us not see a human being but see someone and be like, this person is shy, maybe because of something like traumatic that happened to them. We just be like, yeah, but Torah, like that, they are quiet, they are like this. You don't really look into what someone is going through until you hear them tell you, no, I'm actually not calm because I want to, I'm calm because of this and this and this. So
Mm,
I do remember you being very quiet, like you say not that many words, you're like, you know just peaceful, getting along with everyone.
mm,
And I just figured that's who she is. I didn't know it was because of something.
yeah. So I just, I think I often, like, I struggled even to communicate, how I felt.
Mm,
Yeah, I struggled
mm,
a lot to communicate to my peers, to my friends that, um,
yeah.
I'm not okay with this, But then also,
Mm, mm,
this is so funny or weird to say, is that I always felt different. I always
mm,
felt different and I always felt like I did fit in a lot of like groups, you know.
mm. Yeah.
In a way, one, I've always gravitated like towards a lot towards like spirituality. And it's just so funny because I didn't grow up in such an environment. But like
Yeah.
I was so intrigued by God, just wanting to know who is God as a person. Not as a
Mm,
person, as God. You know what I mean?
mm,
Like, who is He? And
yeah.
just having that interest in Him. But then also, I loved fashion. I think that comes from my mom. But then
Mm,
remember, uni is also a life of like partying. You
yeah.
remember that part? So I think
Yes.
I struggle to balance those two things to probably
Mm,
come out and say that I don't want to go out every night because now you'd be like the weird, different girl who no one wants to hang around. You're boring, you're weird. So I think I had, like I said, an identity crisis. I
mm,
I buried a lot of things inside in here. Yeah.
mm, mm,
And I also don't want to make excuses for myself, Yes.
yeah. Yeah.
Because I feel like with being like that, sometimes you are the toxic person, in
Yeah.
as much as
Mm,
because you don't communicate and then you feel like
yeah.
you're doing your best. And then when
Mm,
things don't go the way you have imagined them,
mm,
it's very easy to also ghost people. So I think
mm,
there was that element that's just
yeah.
outside is calm and sweet, but in here
Mm,
is identity crisis, is also the part of me that's people pleasing. There's a part that is used
mm,
to um, I I take instructions from my siblings, from
Yeah.
What my siblings want me to do is what I do. So I just
Yeah.
felt like I never really came out of my shell. Yeah. Mhm.
When was it? Do you would you say you're out of your shell now, and what brought you out of your shell?
Coming out of the shell is a journey. I think you know that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not,
I know. Yeah.
yeah, what really brought me out of my shell. So in 2020,
Mm.
we know that the pandemic happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when the pandemic happened, at the time I was living alone. What that meant is that I had to sit with myself, as a
Mm.
person. But in sitting
Mm.
with myself is also these marks and trails that you've left behind in relationships. Like I said,
Mm.
sometimes you are the toxic person in as much as you don't want to
Yeah.
admit. So I
Yeah.
I noticed and I remember asking myself, why is it that most of my relationships don't work? And I would consider myself someone who really genuinely loves people, especially someone who loves like one-on-ones, deep conversations. Why is it that
Mm.
my relationships don't work? Why is it that
Yeah.
I'm struggling in this area of relationships? And I just noticed I didn't really know myself. I didn't know who I
Mm.
was. I wasn't bold enough to say that, I'm okay doing this or I'm not okay doing that. So that's where the
Yeah.
struggle was. So I feel like the journey really started in 2020. But
Mm.
like I said, I also feel like I'm a person who I am actually. I am a person who, like, challenges push me to be better. They really bring out the
Yeah.
best in me, which is just weird. But yeah. Um, so now I started digging deeper. And around that time, there's a friend of mine I became really close to called Mel.
Mm.
She
Mm.
told me she had enrolled for Bible college. Yeah.
Mm.
And she invited me and I turned it down because I felt like that's religion. It's very religious.
Mm.
I won't be able to get to the root of my character flaws. Yeah. So it's not
Yeah.
until 2023, actually, this year, that I said yes
Yeah. Mm.
um, to it. And that's when, one, like, I felt like it was the right time to do it because it's like, it was best for me to go to my maker, who is God, yeah, to
Mm.
tell me about
Yeah.
me, yeah. So I
Mm.
joined Caris Bible College, and
Yeah.
when I tell you it's the thing, right now, when you see me on social media, and like you said, that you notice there's a change, something is different.
Mm.
It's like being in that school, it's like I was peeling.
Mm.
It's like God was just peeling like a banana, which is me, just finding like
Mm.
this is who you are. For example, I discovered that in as much as I love going out and parties, I'm a very introverted person. I prefer
Mm.
one-on-one conversations, one-on-one friendships
Mm.
with people as opposed to
Yeah.
being in groups. Um,
Yeah.
I also have so many gifts that I wasn't investing in. Um,
Mm.
I also became very gracious to myself to understand that um, the environment I grew up in shaped me, but also I took
Yeah.
accountability for my part in my story,
Mm.
you know,
Mm.
in my relationships and friendships. I also took
Yeah.
accountability for that. Like I said, sometimes you're the toxic person.
Mm. Yeah.
And also, I think the thing that really stood out for me was knowing that I don't have to allow life to happen to me.
Mm.
I have the capacity, my God-given ability to tell life, to to determine where my life should go and what it should look like. And that the
Yeah.
whole idea that the world owes me happiness is a lie. It's a lie.
Yeah. That's
The
that's that's
Yeah,
that's some that's some that's some growth right there.
yes, yeah.
No one owes you anything.
No, the world doesn't owe me happiness, and I don't have to wait for life to happen to me. Right
Yes.
here, right now, where I am, God loves me,
Mm.
and
Mm.
it's not like He just loves me, He actually likes me. you know.
Yeah.
So I think there was growth in terms of taking accountability, growth in discovering
Yeah.
who I am, but also stepping out now to be what I really know now that I am. Yeah. So
Yeah. Mm.
that was a turning point
Yeah.
right there. Mm.
Yeah. How have you embraced the new you in the life that you're living right now? And how is it guiding your life and how you're seeing the world and other people and your purpose?
Mm. One was understanding that I have authority in life, because it's
Mm.
one thing to know that you know that there's such a thing called authority, but
Yeah.
it's one thing for it to, for authority to be there, but then it's another thing for you to know that you have authority to determine how your
Yes.
life pans
Yes.
out, but then also
Mm.
ditching the whole victim mentality.
Mm.
That in as much as life happened the way it happened, I don't have to
Mm.
be defined by my past. I now have a
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
future, you know. I
Mm.
have gifts that I've never even, in a way, because you just notice it's like all your life. For me, it was like all my life I have sought validation, ditching the victim mentality and going
Mm.
after what really sets my heart on fire, you know,
Yeah.
and just telling my story the way it is, which is just
Mm.
embracing my story the way it is. And it's funny when you
Mm.
reached out, I was already in that space where, like, I just want to tell my
Yeah.
story, and it's not even about me. I just hope
Mm.
maybe it can encourage one person or two
Yeah.
and just live life in freedom, not
Mm.
waiting to arrive at a certain destination so that I can be great. It's just like where
Yeah.
I am right now, I'm able to make an impact. So I feel like right now there's a lot of, I'm doing life in a lot of ways beyond self and not being
Mm.
held back by the world or waiting for validation from the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And what are some of the practical tools that you have used to navigate this new part of your life?
Um, the word, the word. And I know, sometimes when you talk about God and the word, some people are like, oh, please, you know. But I wish I had a different
Yeah.
story, but that's really it. It's the word
Mm.
of God
Yeah.
that is really
Mm.
truly my mirror right now. And that doesn't
Mm.
mean that my life is perfect. It's far from it.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
but also, to be honest, life is good. Like, the word has helped me realize that there's just so much to be grateful for, man, Misty. Like,
Mm.
I
There is.
come from such a loving family. Like,
Mm.
my siblings, my dad,
Mm.
like, I know without a doubt that any day at my worst, they will have my back. But also
Yeah.
appreciating the role that my friendships over the years have played in my
Mm.
life, the role that those
Mm-hmm.
friendships, even past relationships, that they have played in my life. And I think these days it's so easy to say, there's a lot of fake friends,
Mm.
and
Mm.
forgetting that we have a part to play, you know.
Play. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 that we have a part to play. So I feel like
Mm.
even with people, like a lot of my friendships, when I look back in the past, is I see grace. I see, like, I'm
Mm.
just so glad that they pushed me here where I am today.
Mm. Yeah.
But then most importantly, embracing self, like appreciating who
Mm.
I am as a person. So, for example, like I said, I really love
Mm.
fashion. So, going after that, I think one of the things that held me back for a really long time is let me wait and start a clothing line. Let me wait when I get enough, capital to do this.
Mm.
But right now, it's like, what do I have? Um,
Yeah.
so I ventured into content creation. I also love photography. I love creating
Mm.
content. It's something that brings me so much joy. So I'm using that
Mm.
platform right now to just spread love in any form and way, and hoping that it can encourage someone out there to just live life freely and know that they are they don't have to wait to be the best. They already are that thing that they're waiting to be. Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
realizing that I already have a lot of things that I've been waiting to receive or
Mm,
been
mm,
praying for. And I think
mm,
recently I just sensed in my spirit that it almost like God was telling me that, Prossy, I'm able to do so much more with what you have right now than what you're waiting
mm.
to receive. And so it's like,
Ephesians 3:20.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. So it's like I've just, there's a death and a rebirth of who I am, you know,
Mm,
and just allowing God to use me. Yeah,
mm,
it's just allowing God to use me. And I think the other thing is I've started to appreciate that the most important gift that I have right now is today. It's
yeah.
today. That the hours
Mm,
that I have in a day are such a
mm,
gift, man,
mm,
because tomorrow is not guaranteed. So it's like, what's my assignment today?
mm,
And just if it's work combined with content creation, combined with spending time with my family, being there for my friends, it's like
yeah.
just wanting to do that to the best of my ability while being
Yeah.
gracious to myself. Because sometimes I
Mm,
feel like sometimes it's also hard to be there for everyone, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I think I've also started having grace for myself, just
Mm,
being gracious to myself and understanding that in as much as I want to be there for everyone, I can't. In this season
mm,
of growth, it's
mm,
also a season where I'm constantly going to God and, asking Him, what should I do telling Him about my plans
mm,
and decisions, and
yeah.
being gracious to myself and just saying, I'm not able to be there for this particular friend of mine the way she wants me to, but I can be there
Mm,
the way I'm able to, not necessarily in the way that they want me to. And then also
yeah.
just allowing myself to receive love. Like, I feel like that's
Yeah.
something I struggled with to even ask for help, to
Mm,
even communicate that, I'm hurting and I need help. It was so hard for me to do. But right now, like I said, it's a journey. I'm growing to accept that. Today, I woke
mm,
up feeling frustrated. Um,
mm,
Today, I'm a little sad. I had a whole, like, at the beginning of the year, like, I had a season of grieving, like, just going back to grieve my mom. And
mm,
in a sense, give her flowers and appreciate the role that she has played in my life. But then
mm,
also, I think there's something I didn't mention. Um, I think the cake was Bible college because it's where I found myself, my identity, and started to embrace it. But also, there's a
yeah.
friend of mine who's also a colleague at work who
Mm,
is a very spiritual guy, very interesting. Um,
mm,
he recently traveled to Kigali for work and
mm,
he stayed longer. I think he was supposed to go for a week and he stayed longer than that. But I remember asking
mm,
him, how come you're still in Kigali? You should be back. And he said that he met he met a gentleman through a friend of his who took him
mm,
through a session of revisiting the past. And basically, what that
yeah.
was is telling him that in order for you to accomplish whatever you need to accomplish on this journey, you need to revisit the past.
Yeah. Mm,
And so he went through that. It was like a rebirth. So when he got back here, he shared that with me, and I too went on that journey. And I'm glad that I did it now. Yes, because
mm,
I feel like if I hadn't done it now, the time where I understand who I am,
yeah.
I would also
Yeah.
get so attached to that past. Yeah,
Mm,
do you get what I mean?
mm,
So I did that whole session, which
yeah.
was basically going back to the past, um, seeing the 7-year-old me, yeah,
Yeah.
hugging that little girl, telling her that things were going to be okay, life was going to turn out better. Yes, in as much as there were challenges, but just self acceptance, the highs, the lows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. I noticed a few things about what you were saying, and there's this guy called, he's like it's a late, he passed on years ago, but a lot of his archives are being put on social media. He's called Jim Rohn. I don't know if you've heard of him. And he's always talking about, he was a philosopher, but he also used to talk so much about like the Bible and God. He was a businessman, but he
Mm,
would use the Bible sometimes to like tell people, to show people how relevant it is. And we always talk about how the most important thing you can do for yourself is personal development. Like if you can be in an economy, you can be at your workplace, you can be anywhere in a friendship or wherever it is. If you haven't invested in you, then you will always blame other people. But if you, in every situation, look at yourself and say, how could I have made this better? How can I be a better person? And through that, I also have been doing a lot of this personal development like since 2020. I think 2020 was like a wake up call for many of us.
mm,
And I see that you are choosing to enjoy the process and not trying to manipulate it or being in control. And I
mm,
think that's a very good thing, because when you try to, for instance, try to control everything, it becomes hard. But like you said, you got into content creation. It's not like, you're in there for, I want this, I want people to pay me, I want to do this. Like, you're just doing it for yourself because you're happy. Like, you're content with who you are as a person. When I look at your content, that's what I see.
thank
I
you
see
very
that you are
much.
happy. You don't care if anyone is going to give an opinion. You're like, you know what, this is my journey and I'm sharing it with you. I don't care if it's pleasing you or something like that.
Mm,
You're just enjoying the process. And you also mentioned something, I see you have started to set boundaries, and boundaries are very good for people who have been people pleasers.
mm,
Because it can weigh heavy on you so many times when we find yourself, I wasn't there for this person the way I should have. Or maybe my brother has called me and told me to do this, and I feel like I have to do it because I owe him all these things, he has done this. But for you to say, no, today I'm not going to be there for you the way you want me to, but I love you anyways. And those are boundaries. And I think that's something that many of us really need, like in this life that we're living in. Because if you are on social media and you're a people pleaser, life is hard, man. You can wake up every
really.
day looking at comments and you're
Yes.
like, why are they not liking me? Why are they
Yes.
not following me? But if you are driven by purpose and impact, I have realized, then you don't care if one of your messages on Instagram affected just one person. You're just happy that you did that.
Mm,
And I'm happy I'm happy, I'm really happy. Like, I wish that for everyone. I really do wish that for everyone. I hope that all of us could get into that space. I know it's not an easy thing.
mm,
You can sometimes find yourself, distracted by all these
mm,
other things. But if you're grounded in something, and to me also faith is something that I'm grounding myself in, then it kind of becomes a little bit easier for you, because you always have like these guidelines that God has, set for you. It's like, don't please anyone, I have created you for
mm.
a purpose. Yeah. Thank you so much, Prossy, for sharing your life with us. I would like to just ask you maybe to share any last words, anything maybe you might have wanted to add, to speak to a woman out there who might be navigating this. And also, I know you shared something about in your adult life is when you've tried to navigate this whole loss of your mom and acceptance and, and grieving. Maybe you can share a little bit about that before you say anything to the women out there. How have you navigated this grieving process as an adult if you didn't do it when you were younger?
Um, First, to anyone out there who can
Mm,
relate, or finds my
mm,
story relatable, I
mm,
would want to say that you're not alone.
mm,
You are not alone. and
Yeah.
you're going to get past this. And I know
Mm.
sometimes it's hard to comprehend that because you're like, how? But I feel like the way God works is all life in itself
Mm.
in general. There are
Mm.
challenges that we face that bring out the best
Mm.
in us. For
Yeah.
example, I honestly, if someone told me in 2019 that I would be here, I would laugh.
Mm.
I would laugh out loud. Because there's a lot of things I
Mm.
thought were important then, but now I really know that they are not. But I
Yeah.
would say that you're going to get past this. And I would say that start to pay attention to yourself, not in a selfish way, you know,
Mm.
but start to look at what are the things that set your heart on fire. What are the things that you're really passionate about? And I
Mm.
really understand that when you build a community, it's
Mm.
so hard to reinvent yourself in a way
Mm.
because it's
Yeah.
almost like there's a version of you that people know, and it's just so hard to break away from that. But I
Yeah.
think the first step is being gracious to yourself, you know,
Mm.
just having grace for yourself because that's the only way we can also have grace for others. If, because I feel like we prosper in life as far or as much as our souls are prospering. It's like it's an
Yeah.
inside out thing. Yeah.
Mm.
If the root is not fixed, the fruit can never be fixed for sure. So start to pay attention
Yeah.
to the things that you
Mm.
like, to the things that you don't like. And of course,
Mm.
I'd say invite God into that space. There's a friend of mine who
Mm.
says that there's no situation you invite God in that He can't change. And a lot of
Yeah.
times we complain about life. But when you really sit back to ask yourself, have I invited God into this situation? Because sometimes
Mm.
when you do, He will tell you, you know, here you're going wrong, or
Mm.
this person that you're hanging with is not necessarily for you. And sometimes they also don't know.
Mm.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So invite God into your situation. There's nothing that's so hard for Him. And He
Mm.
has a plan, like you have a purpose and plan in life.
Mm.
Refuse to let the past or your story hold you back. I feel like
Mm.
part of the reason why our stories are the way they are is for a
Mm.
greater purpose, something bigger than us.
Yeah.
So don't give up. That's what I would tell anyone out there. Don't give up. Things are going to get better. Just
Yeah.
please don't give up. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Prossy. And I really appreciate your time. I can't wait to see more of your purpose unfold and see you impact so many other people out there.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. It was an honor.
Wow. Isn't Prossy a true ray of sunshine? She even prayed for me, the first guest to pray for me on the show. Her calm voice, the determination to grow, and the journey she shared are truly inspiring. If you've listened until the end, I'm sure you found her story captivating. Thank you so much, Prossy, for opening up and blessing us with your incredible journey. Your prayers and well wishes mean a lot. And to you, my dear SheCentre community, your love and support are invaluable. Thank you for giving these amazing women a platform to share their stories. Every story matters, and we are grateful for your continued support. Please do share this episode with anyone who might find inspiration in Prossy's journey. Don't forget to rate and review. It helps me to reach even more wonderful listeners. So until next time, thank you for being a part of SheCentre, the female podcast. Your support means the world to me. Please help me spread the word by sharing our episodes with your friends, family, and followers. Let's amplify the voices of women, break barriers, challenge stereotypes, and create a network of support and empowerment. Together, we can bring about positive change and make this world a better place for all. This is SheCentre, the female podcast, where women's stories matter. I love you all. God bless.